Good morning. My name is Kevin Glassman. On behalf of ALS United Greater New York's board, and as a member of the organization's Care Services Committee, it's my pleasure to welcome you to the 4th Annual Education and Resource Summit, Navigating the ALS Journey. Most, if not all, the members of the Greater New York board have a very personal relationship with ALS and have a common mindset to find a cure and assist patients as much as possible that are living with ALS. Over the next 2 days, you'll have the opportunity to take part in numerous sessions and conversations that span a wide variety of topics related to ALS. Everything from genetics, palliative care, finding and funding a caregiver, to managing nutrition, and a great deal more. It's hard to believe that this July will mark 10 years since the Ice Bucket Challenge began quietly as a social media experiment and challenge. It grew into a worldwide phenomenon within days, and none of us will forget how this changed the future of ALS forever. The ALS Ice Bucket Challenge brought unprecedented levels of awareness, research advancement, and substantial increases in essential care services. In the 10 years following the Ice Bucket Challenge, through the outpouring of support from the world, ALS United Greater New York has been able to notably grow our care services programs, increasing financial grants to families, partnering with 10 local ALS clinics, and increasing the number of medical equipment and communication devices we loan free of charge to patients each year. Together, we're making impactful strides towards a cure and remain committed to funding the most promising research advancements. In the time since the Ice Bucket Challenge began, there have been new drugs approved to slow the progression of the disease, and the research pipeline has grown exponentially, providing us with more hope today than ever before. We at ALS United Greater New York are here for you and to support you and to navigate this journey. Together, we are relentless against ALS, and together we strive to end ALS. Thank you again for joining us over the next 2 days.
Good morning and welcome to our 4th Annual Education and Resource Summit. My name is Debbie Schlossberg. I'm the Chief Care Services Officer here at ALS United Greater New York, and I'm thrilled to be able to welcome you here this morning. Together with the generous support of MT Pharma, our silver sponsor, we are welcoming this morning Laurice Duffy and Nirali Shah to share with us their thoughts on perspectives on caregiving. Nirali is the co-team lead and COO of the Divine Group at Douglas Elliman Realty. She's a graduate of Wellesley College and the American University School of Law. Following the passing of her dear mother, Sonal, almost 9 years ago, Nirali has devoted much of her energy to the ALS community, first as an advocate, then adding fundraising, and now as a member of ALS United Greater New York's Board of Directors. Joining her this morning is Laurice Duffy. Laurice is a life coach, author, and proprietor of A Mindful Journey. Laurice wrote Raising Hope, the story of her own journey as a caregiver and mother following the passing of her husband to ALS. Laurice and Nirali are very, very anxious for this to be a conversation. They want to hear from you, our audience. So please feel free to put any questions or thoughts or comments into the Q&A. And we will be sure to have Laurice and Nirali address everything that you have to say. And now, welcome, Laurice and Nirali.
Thank you, Debbie. Hello, everyone. Like Debbie said, my name is Laurice Duffy, and I'm a certified women's empowerment coach with a BA in psychology, author and speaker, founder of the Kindness Matters mission, and most importantly, a former caregiver of an ALS patient, my late husband, Kevin Duffy, and the father to our 4 boys, including triplets. Nirali?
Sure. Thank you. It's great to be here. My name is Nirali. I am also a former caregiver, but from a child perspective, my mom had ALS and was diagnosed in 2012 and passed away in 2015, which was also my graduating year of law school. So I'm happy to be here and answer any questions everyone has, and looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah. So I think we'll start off with just sharing our goal, Nirali and I, our goal with all of you, which is to provide you with perspective, tools and inspiration in navigating and mastering what I know we both agree and feel is the complex art of navigating self-care while assuming the honor and endless task of caregiving. So we thought we would go through some of those bullet points that we think are really important and we want to share with you as, reflecting back on our own journey and recognizing, what is really important for you as you are, on your own journey. So the first one that I would like to share is really allowing your sadness and giving yourself to feel the pain. The saying says we can only heal it if we feel it. And I know from my own experience, and I'm sure for yours too, that grieving starts the day that diagnosis is given. And by allowing to feel your own sadness, you're allowing your family and giving them permission to feel theirs. And your pain wants to be seen, it wants to be acknowledged, it wants to be validated. It doesn't want to be pushed down and ignored. It doesn't want to be, just jumping into something to busy yourself to try to avoid it, because I think that when you're finished with that, your grief will still be there waiting. So you just want to be in it and allow it. Nirali, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, no, I think it's super important to feel all the feelings, and it's definitely a roller coaster at different stages. I know I obviously naturally cried a lot at different points. A big outlet of mine has always been to journal. As a young child, it was something my mom, whether it be on different trips or in the evenings, but to just take out thoughts and express yourself. And a lot of that was through writing in my journal for me, and something that I've continued to this day. And it really helps me get through happy times, but also really difficult times. So I definitely turned to a lot more journaling during that time and afterwards as well. And I'm also an only child, so it was also a perspective where, I didn't have anyone to share it with on a day-to-day basis, and someone in my certain circumstance. And so it was something that I really allowed myself to feel the sadness, but I really pushed myself to also share it with people, with my friends, with my cousins, family. And so that just creating that support system really helped me not necessarily overcome what I was feeling, but at least feel more supported and not alone in that process. But a lot of it was just, feeling sad and being okay with it and sharing that with others.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Somebody had said to me, or I think I read, that your feelings are like, for those of you who have dogs, or when you walk into your home after being out and your dog is just so excited to see you and it just can't control itself. And what happens is you maybe lean down, you pet the dog, you say hello to the dog, you acknowledge the dog, and the dog goes and calms down and lays down. And our feelings are the same way. They want to be acknowledged. They want to be validated. They want to be heard. They want to be seen. So, allow them, just allow them, to, if that means you just have to take a moment and just be with your feelings, it will serve you so well. Absolutely. Number two, I would say, is identifying the choices that you do have. And, it's so common that we focus on craving control where we have none, that we can't see all the places where we do. And that was a big one for me. And I think with saying that, I want to remind you that choosing doesn't mean that we change the unchangeable. Of course not. But it simply means that you identify, and choose to take control over what you can. There's a lot of power in understanding the difference. And there's so many choices that you can make, even though I just want to validate that I know it feels like at times like you don't, because the one choice that, of course, you want to make, you can't, but there are still choices. And, some of the ones that I, for my journey, was choosing love and patience and kindness, because I felt like it was a real opportunity to teach my kids and family that our response is always more powerful than our circumstances. And, I think truth powerfully, provides trust. For me, I had 4 kids. And this was, not only navigating the grief of, my husband having this diagnosis, but watching my children, and their grief with, their dad having this diagnosis. So, really providing that trust, that they knew that when I was told things, they would be told, and I wasn't keeping anything from them, because I think if they thought that would be so much scarier and so much bigger in their minds. Nirali, do you want to?
Yeah, I think as someone who likes to control a lot of things, and it's something that, my mom's diagnosis definitely, I learned a lot from it and gained a lot of perspective. And still, I love to control all the things, but such is life where we can't. And so what my mom was very good at, and I think what really helped our family and our community, was she really chose to accept and embrace the situation. And she turned to advocacy, and that kind of led everyone in our family and the people around us to do the same. So she dedicated herself to writing a book about her life and her experiences with ALS, and providing resources. She created a team of women who helped her kind of brainstorm the type of legacy that she wanted to lead and to leave. And that really gave me purpose and kind of a focus, really. And these are all things that we could control. We couldn't control her progression and the day-to-day things that obviously things happen. But we, as a family, we turned to advocacy. So it's something that my mom was very strong about and wanted to really share her experience. And it really allowed us also to be very open with our family and the people around us and the ALS community. So we traveled to DC for the advocacy conference a few times. She was very instrumental in creating ALS Awareness Month for New Jersey. I grew up in New Jersey, although I live in Manhattan now. And, that was something that we could control, and that we chose to dedicate our energies and efforts towards. And it's something that even now, as I'm going through, life. It's really nice to be able to still control that aspect. And by controlling, I mean choosing it. And to really dedicating that time to being a part of this community and trying to be supportive to other people going through similar situations. And I think also a big part of it is not only with ALS, but in other parts of life and gaining that experience and that perspective in all other stages of life as well. So a lot of it is just being able to take control and choosing where to focus efforts on. And that also gave a lot of perspective from a day-to-day experience as well.
I love that. I love that so much. It's so empowering. And I feel like it probably helped you guys have a place to put all that anxiety. It was like you had a job, and it allowed you to sort of really not feel so pent up and frustrated, not that, I'm sure you still were, but at least it gave you something to do and a place to sort of, put all that feeling of what you couldn't control and have a place for it. And that is really, really helpful, I'm sure. And how brave of her. Wow. Wow. I want to add too, for, in my family, choosing a sense of humor when appropriate was really important. It was a reminder that laughter is the best medicine sometimes. And, it sort of just, I think laughter just sort of also is another way of kind of putting a dent into all of that anxiety and sadness and frustration, and just letting go a little bit. So for us, keeping a sense of humor when it felt appropriate was important. And, for me, having the kids too, it was important that, choosing strength and leadership for me, because I knew they were going to follow my lead, and I knew how beautifully it would offer stability and safety and security for them. Like I said, while also sharing my feelings, giving them permission to feel their own. So I think all of it put together creates a good energy for everyone to feel their feelings and to be in it, the best they possibly can. Would you say that? Yeah. Yeah.
I just got a question on the Q&A. Someone asked, what's the name of my mom's book? And is it available on Amazon? So yes. The name is called My Life, Legacy, and ALS by Sonal Shah. I can also type it, and it is available on Amazon. So it's a good resource in terms of just her life and what her born and being raised in India, getting her law degree there, coming to the US, raising me and with my dad, and also her struggles with ALS and the progression of it, and a bunch of resources for ALS as well. So I'm happy to type it in the chat as well so everyone gets it. But yeah, thank you.
So I would say our next bullet point is something that I think is hard for some people, and I really want to emphasize the importance of this, and it's giving family, friends, and community the gift. And I'm using the word gift very purposely, giving them the gift of helping you. That could be bringing meals. It could be driving your kids to sporting events or school activities. It could be coming and sitting with your loved one so you can go take a nap, or so you can, just run errands or take a break. I think that people want a job. People want to be able to do something to help because they don't know what to do. And they don't want to force themselves into a situation, that some people might not want or embrace. So I think that allowing people, sharing with them, maybe it's picking up a gallon of milk if they're at the store. There's so many different ways. If your community, your church, your town wants to do a fundraiser to help you with, costs, maybe to go on a trip, with your loved one, if that's possible. All these things are a gift to those people because everyone wants to do something. So when I use the word gift, like I said, it's very purposeful because it really is helping them and allowing them to do something.
Absolutely. I think it, at least, innately for us, it's something hard to do is to ask for help or be open to allow yourself and not to kind of put on a strong front. But this is something where people really want to help and really want to get involved and may not know how to. Some people, I think, are innately good at knowing what to do in certain circumstances. And I think it's probably because they may have gone through something similar. And so they've learned from their experiences. But it really was amazing when we opened the doors to how people showed up in different ways. And also being okay telling people, yes, please, especially for my dad, since he was home on a day-to-day, he was able to work from home on a day-to-day basis. And his haven has always been the grocery store. And he just wanted time in the grocery store to go through each aisle and relax. But being, sharing that with someone and being able to tell someone that this is what I would like to do, do you mind coming by for a little bit? And so just getting that support from whoever and however. And for me, as a law student at the time, I was not physically there every day, but I was there most weekends, and just being able to share things with friends and people. There would be weekends I would go home and my friends would just be there. They would somehow just like show up and be there. And it was something that obviously I loved, but my parents loved it even more. And to have a house full of young adults and just hanging out and cooking. And so it really created an atmosphere. And for me, I never asked them to do that, but it was something that it was amazing to see how just by you sharing kind of what you're going through, how people would really show up. And it was something that my mom from day one was very, very, very clear about, but she wanted to share this with everyone and she wanted to have our doors open. And it really allowed people just to kind of come in and out of the home whenever they wanted to come by for tea or drop by some flowers or food or whatever it may be. And so it really allowed us to be able to do that. And along with that was the advocacy work and the fundraising for ALS United. And it was something that people, again, if they weren't comfortable showing up with food or doing something, but if they could give in a different way, just allowing people different opportunities. And it was amazing for me to see how people would show up. And some people I would think would show up in a certain way, but they would show up in a different way. And it's just, people do what they can and we're humans and all love to be a part of a community and to be loved. And it's something that I think really being able to give those opportunities to people and people want to give and in different ways and to be a part of something. And it's a great way for everyone to get involved in.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I want to just share a little story too quickly. Unlike Nirali, My husband didn't want everyone to know. And that was hard. That was hard on me. I ended up receiving a call from someone who wanted to do a turkey trot fundraiser for us that apparently is done in our town every year. And I accepted. And I thought that this was going to be sort of a private, type of turkey trot, that the people who do these 5Ks are involved in. And next thing I know, there's this huge sign on our road that says, it's advertising about the turkey trot and that it's for the Duffy family. And my kids said, oh my gosh, as we passed by in the car, did you see that sign? And I thought, oh my gosh, what did I do? And all of a sudden, family and friends were signing up. And I realized that my kids and I needed to be there. And anyway, the long story, or the short version, is that we pulled in and there were over 600 people at this fundraiser. And I realized, had I known it was going to be this big thing, I might have declined. And my kids, quietly had people whispering, we've got you, just by seeing all these people. They were hearing, they weren't really saying it, but I'm saying just by being there, they were hearing all these people say, we've got you. And to think that I would have denied them that much beautiful and that much love and that much support, and seeing that and feeling that. So, and my husband, we videoed, and my husband was, he was really taken back as well. So just another side of it, and how, how things sort of turn out. So don't, I just want to validate those of you who might have been, presented with something and feel a little unsure. I hope that maybe that story helps you say yes. I would say stay in the moment. I think that's just stay in the moment. Try as hard as that is. A lot of times I was so ahead of myself, thinking about, well, what about if this happens, or when that happens, or what? And not that it's not important to be prepared, but don't create more anxiety than is needed by, thinking about the future, because who knows, so many different things could happen, and, positively. And you don't want to go to all the worst case scenarios. Again, I think being prepared is certainly important, but they say the acronym for fear is false evidence appearing real. So you just don't want to take it to the level that you're creating more anxiety within you that is unnecessary in that moment, in that day. How about you?
I completely agree. As there's so much going on, and at any given point, it's a very, at least for us, it was very reactionary, and to be able to stay in the moment and not thinking about everything else that may or may not happen. And for us, it really helped getting the resources from ALS United and kind of helping. So it's definitely at some points we were obviously naturally delayed in the progression and how we could make my mom's quality of life easier. But trying to be more communicative with the support groups and with the resources at ALS United really helped us. The loan equipment program is a great example, where we got help in installing a ramp. And once we realized, my mom, it was difficult for her to go up steps. What did we need to do in order to make her quality of life better? And so installing a ramp or getting a Hoyer lift or all the logistical things, that ALS United helped us with, or at least we were able to plan then ahead for certain things, made our day-to-day and staying in the moment a lot easier. So instead of thinking, oh, this thing is happening now and we need to fix this yesterday, we know something is kind of set up. So we're able to stay more in the moment and to be present with, with my mom in that situation, and knowing that some things are kind of set up for the future that we may or may not need, but at least we're able to really enjoy now, and to take advantage of that. And that didn't always happen. There are definitely times where, again, we were being reactionary, and but definitely tried to use the resources that we had with ALS United and the other local support groups to kind of foresee things. But that is so much easier said than done. And even with all of that, it's obviously very difficult. So everyone's situation is different. But it was something that we definitely tried to do so we could try to enjoy the moments. And I was able to take my mom to the mall by myself in a van with her power wheelchair. And it was something we always enjoyed doing growing up. I always remember doing that with her, and we would mainly just eat at the mall a lot and shop, but it was something we were able to do even just with me and her very easily. And so being able to do that was definitely, staying in the moment and taking advantage of that time.
And, before I mention the last one, I wanted, because you said something so important. This isn't always easy. And sometimes, well, this isn't easy, but we're not always, even though, we're stating all these things to try to do, it's to help you make a choice. It's to help you be conscious of these things so you can intentionally, do them, think about them, and have the awareness around them. But by no means I can speak for myself, and I think I can speak to Nirali because we shared quite a bit before this, that it's not perfect. And there's going to be days that you are horrible at trying to do any of these things. And that's perfect. That's okay. And then we just choose again the next day, or we choose again the next hour, or we choose again the next 5 minutes. I think it's really important that you are compassionate and understanding and patient with yourself. And that leads me to the last one, which is taking care of you as the caregiver. And this is not last in its level of importance by any means, but actually the one that I'd like to highlight to make sure that it stays very, very fresh in your mind. It's not only important, but it's a crucial part of your, success in this role of caregiving. And if you aren't taking care of you, it's impossible to take care of your loved one. You need to take care of your loved one's caregiver, because your loved one is counting on you. And possibly if you have children, they're counting on you. Or, whatever this dynamics are, you need to make sure that you are prioritizing you and putting yourself in the category of the people you are taking care of. So I think we can probably just go back and forth with a few, and certainly, going for walks, exercising, yoga, whatever it is, but some sort of movement, being in nature. It doesn't have to be exercise to get in shape. It can just be a walk in nature and listening to the birds and looking at the trees. And you know what? If you have a buddy that'll go with you, bonus points. And maybe, talking and sharing. Nirali, what would you add to the list?
Yeah, I think The exercise part was something I did not do, but I do now a lot more of that. But especially during that time, for me, it was being able to just hang out with friends. And it was something where my parents were very adamant. So my mom was diagnosed a month after I graduated from college, and a few months prior to me going to law school. And so I wanted to stay local, but they were adamant about me, living my life and doing what I needed to do. And so thankfully, I was able to go to DC for law school, but I was coming home most weekends. But what I really had to, and I struggled with it a lot, was to, be able to have fun and to have my own law school experience, and to go to the social events, and to, be with my friends. And it was something that I, definitely struggled with. I had possibly more guilt than I should have. But that really set me up for my future. And it was something that, although I was, again, home a lot, and I definitely missed some law school fun events, but it was something that where it was really my outlet. And for a lot of people, it was their most stressful parts of life, just being in law school. But for me, the school part was actually probably the most fun, because I was able to be in my own community of people. But it was something it was very challenging for me to do that, and to be okay with kind of living my life separately. But when I was home, I was so engrossed in everything. And on a day-to-day basis, I was still so engrossed in it, because, my mom was writing a book. I was editing and rereading and rewriting pages, and giving feedback, and constantly and always involved every step of the way. But it was something where it really made me realize that, you do have to take care of yourself, because if my life was falling apart, it would have definitely have impacted my mom even more. And she really, her first thing that she said when she was diagnosed was that she wanted to see me graduate from law school. And so I knew I had to, do that, not only for me and my future, but for her and for her dreams. And so it was something that, being able to take care of myself and prioritizing that, really helped her and our family, to be able to say, this is okay. And, really we were able to really, I think, thrive in a way in that circumstance, although she obviously wanted me home all the time, and wanted to be with me all the time. And I did too. But thankfully with technology these days too, it's a lot easier. So I would talk to her multiple times a day and FaceTime with her multiple times a day. So definitely still very involved, but also being able to do what you need to do as well.
And I think that's so important what you just shared, because, there was still a need to be at law school, to, obviously to get your degree, but also to be you again, to be the law student that was having some fun. And I love that you shared that, because I really think it helps validate some of the people listening that you can still have fun. It's important. I would go out to dinner with friends, and we would laugh, have wine, cry maybe too, but I needed to not lose myself in all of this completely. I needed to just have moments of feeling like the old me again, so I could sort of refill my tank and come back and be the best caregiver that I could possibly, be. So I think that, this just allows some normalcy and just gives you, rejuvenates you a bit, so you can come back and be what everybody needs you to be. And, when you are with your friends and you're out, and, they're kind of lifting you up. Because when you go home, you're the one doing the lifting. You're the one holding everything together. So you need a place to fall. You need a safe place to fall where you can, just have the support, have the, you know, the outlet that is so very needed. So I was very unapologetic about that that time that I needed. And fortunately, my husband was very supportive, and wanted me to do those things. And when I was home, I was very focused on my job there. But when I was out, I was very focused on refilling and giving myself what I needed to be able to go back and do my job. And something else that I just want to share quickly and then I think we'll go into Q&A, maybe, Nirali, is I really thought about my future self. And I feel like I heard that a little bit in what you were sharing too, Nirali. Like, I really thought about what she needed. And I knew she needed peace without any regret. And I would think about that. So I would, I thought about how I needed to take care of my husband and how I needed to take care of my kids and how I needed to take care of myself and also what my future self needed. And I think just by thinking about that allowed me to be a little more intentional about making sure that she was provided with that, if that makes sense. Does that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think along with that too, and I heard this recently in another context, and it's something that really resonated with me now and also in the past, but as a caregiver, we're literally giving and constantly giving, and to be able to receive is a whole other element and something that is very much needed when we are giving. And so to receiving from other people, receiving from yourself, receiving from whatever brings you joy and happiness, and being able to prioritize that is something that is very important. And in that way, you can take care of your future self, and you can take care of the person that you are caregiving for, and just being okay with the receiving. And it's something that I struggle with and not, but I'm trying to internalize it more. But I think it's something that really, may resonate with some of you as well, but being okay with receiving, and that can also come from you and yourself. And so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Last thing I think is just giving yourself permission to not be perfect, because we are all thrown into these roles, with our own grief, possibly kids to take care of, or, like Nirali, you probably felt like you were kind of trying to support your dad, so we're all trying to, and, there's no playbook. We don't know. So please give yourself grace. Just give yourself grace, because this isn't easy. We learn as we go, right? And we try to get as much input. And that's why Nirali and I are here to hopefully, share with you, make you possibly shift your perspective, or maybe make you think about something that you hadn't yet thought of that will be really helpful as you navigate your way through. So why don't we, Debbie, if you want to share if there are any questions with us, we would love to answer and get a little interactive with everyone.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, both of you. That was so useful and so honest. And I have no doubt that your words resonated with our audience. We do have some questions, so let's get right to them. People want your advice. The first question that came in is there a best way to tell a loved one my diagnosis? So this is a question from somebody who's been diagnosed with ALS to you as caregivers.
Yeah, I think, I don't think there's a right answer to this, unfortunately. I think the biggest thing, and it's something that I know Laurice has spoke to about earlier, is, whatever is your most natural way of communication and being truthful. It was something that I know, at least in my experience, my mom was very aware of, and we kind of brought different parts of the family home, invited them over and would tell them, but that's just, from our experience. I know probably so many ways of doing it, but yeah, that was something that we did. I don't know, Laurice, what your perspective is.
I think I agree with you 100%. I think honesty, I think being honest, and I think what would really be helpful for your family is sharing what you want. Like, perhaps you don't want to talk about it right now. You want to just talk about the joyful things. And right now you're not ready to talk about it. Maybe you want to share, how you're feeling, or whatever it is that can be communicated, because I really think communication is key. So I think when people understand what is going to be helpful for you, they can provide it. So, and not feel the discomfort of not knowing what to do. So just kind of feeling like, I don't know what to do. So I would say honesty and communication would be my answer. Yeah.
And I don't know if you can see this, but someone did just respond saying that they wrote cards to tell them of their diagnosis. So that's another option.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I think, Debbie, you're muted.
Thanks for that, Laurice. The next question also is a big one. The person is asking for advice for the sandwich generation. The person says specifically that they have a baby that they have to care for, and they're also a caregiver to their father who has ALS. How to navigate that very, very challenging role?
Yeah, that's, I would say first acknowledging that you're in a very difficult role as both new mom or a mom of a baby, and having a parent that has ALS. So I think the first thing is just feeling, giving yourself your own validation, your own acknowledgement that this is tough. This is hard. I think sometimes we try to pretend that things, we should be able to do this, and we sort of white knuckle our way through it. And there's so much resistance inside because we're not allowing ourselves to feel the difficulty and the challenge of what we're going through. So I would say, first and foremost, just acknowledge that, wow, this is a hard season of life right now. And I think just in removing the resistance of trying to fight that and push it away gives you some kind of ease and like, okay, now what do we do? And how do we navigate being a mom and one thing I would say is probably bringing the baby to see your dad probably brings him so much joy. Happiness, that I, would think that would be really helpful. And I think that giving yourself permission also to know that there are going to be times that you have to be there for your baby, that, you're just might not be able to be or do everything that you want to be and do for your parent because you're a mom and you do have certain responsibilities and things that, cause you to not be able to be everything that you would love to be as a daughter or son to your father. What are your thoughts, Nirali?
Yeah, that's definitely, I think you hit it on the nail on the head, that it really is challenging. And ultimately, I think being okay and addressing that and recognizing that is definitely the first step. For me, I think definitely not the same situation at all. But it was just reaching out to people, asking for help. And that's kind of where I have always leaned on is, just my people and my community. And but being okay asking for help, whether that be, with the baby or with your dad or yourself, and taking that time for yourself. But yeah, it's absolutely very challenging. I know, at least for my mom, she was so excited for her future grandchildren. And it was something that drove her, even though I was very far away from that at that point. So I think absolutely bringing your baby to see your father and having them interact, and also being able to share that with your baby once your baby is bigger and older, having those recordings. And my mom made recordings for her future grandchildren that I thought it was unnecessary at the time, but now recognizing that, like, oh wow, like that was very important. So being able to spend that time together, the three of you, I think is also very special.
Thanks. This question, I guess, is for you, Nirali. You were talking about your mom, Sonal's book. And the questioner says, I know that you said that she chose advocacy, her way of coping, her way to involve people. Everything was through her advocacy and the book. So the questioner says, was the book her therapy?
That's a great question. Absolutely. I've never really thought about it that way. But absolutely. I think it really gave her purpose and a drive and a reason to fight ALS in every way she could have, and to get everyone involved. And a lot of that absolutely was her therapy. When she was fully involved in writing her book and spending late nights on her laptop, with her fingers curled and trying to unravel one finger at a time so she could just type. It gave her life back in ways that I had never seen it before. And so I absolutely think it was her therapy. Without that, I don't know how she would have coped. And people have different ways of doing that. But that was definitely her way of, it was her baby. Now that I was out of the house, and it really gave her purpose.
It means so much. So there's another question, and it has to do with, I think, something, Laurice, that you said in the very, very beginning about allowing sadness. So the question has to do with the balance between allowing those feelings, allowing those very difficult feelings, and the caregiver's instinct to protect their loved ones. How to let it flow, how to let it be and be authentic, but having this impulse to not overload the people around you or even put it on them at all. Can you speak to that, please?
And by people, meaning the person diagnosed with ALS, or just generally?
I guess, yeah, family, loved ones.
Yeah. I think that I think that sharing and crying with the person who has been diagnosed, I think is a really beautiful, loving thing. I think sharing in that emotion is very connecting. And I think that there are times, and I think navigating that, that you might want to outsource, and reach out to a friend to really sit with and feel those big feelings with. I wouldn't say that constantly doing that with your children or with your, your loved one who's been diagnosed. I wouldn't suggest that. I think that, bits and pieces is really beautiful, but I think the overload, I think you can take some of that, and that's where our support comes in, and we go to those people. I always call them my tribe, like, the main people that I knew were my go-to people when I needed something, and really sort of unloading on them and giving them some of it. So it wasn't so much at home. I stand by feeling your feelings and allowing the people around you, and by doing that, giving them permission to feel their feelings. So I think that that's really important. But I think that there's going to be times that some people are stronger and some people, might not be able to handle that kind of, emotion or overwhelming emotion. So I would say just navigate it, know that parts of it is really beautiful, and sharing that with your kids or your loved one that has ALS, or if it's a parent, sharing it with the other parent is really beautiful. And it kind of brings you together because you're both, feeling all those feelings. But then I would take some of it and outsource it, where it doesn't feel like it's just flooding through, the rooms of the house, where it's just the energy is just taking everybody down. So I would say just balance that a bit.
Anything you want to add to that, Nirali?
No, and yeah.
You said it all.
Very well said, yeah.
Okay, we do have a couple comments, not questions, but I think let's squeeze in one more question before we go to the comments, because they will be nice to end on. And even though this looks like a really big question, you spoke a lot, Laurice in particular, about choice. How do you choose patience?
That's interesting, because the way that I chose patience was how I took care of my future self, because I knew she needed peace and no regret. So when I wanted to be impatient, when I wanted to just scream that I was exhausted and I couldn't get up at 4 a.m. to rub your feet because you're so anxious, I really thought about her. And I knew she needed to look back on that moment and know that she provided understanding and patience and love. And I would then take that exhaustion and take it and outsource it, like I said, to the people that I knew were there for me. So it wasn't that I ignored it or I just white knuckled my way through so much exhaustion that I was going to crack or I was going to break. I just then put it on the people that I knew were really strong and really solid in my life. So I could continue to have patience and think about my future self and provide those patience, but then really lean on the people who could carry me in those moments when I needed it the most.
Nirali, anything?
No, not to that point, but I do see that we did get one more other question in that I would like to quickly respond to.
Sure.
Someone asked, what do you do when the person with ALS doesn't have something to give them purpose, like your mom had with her book? And their aunt, they feel that their aunt has just abandoned any purpose, eating, sleeping, going to the bathroom. I would say that it was not something overnight that my mom decided to write a book and decided to figure out what her legacy would be. It took time and a lot of internal patience and a lot of crying, a lot of staring into space, figuring things out. It wasn't something that came overnight and instinctively and naturally. And so, I would say, give your aunt the time and space, and people cope in many different ways. I know it must be so difficult to see her going through that process. And, as caregivers, it's something that we really try to do is try to come up with solutions. And it's something that I revert to, but giving someone the space and time to do it. And from my experience, it wasn't an easy thing that my mom just kind of came up with. And so it was a process. So if that's, the situation, definitely it's okay. It's definitely okay. And you're not alone.
Beautiful. To go quickly to the two comments, Adele says that advocacy is empowering. My mom and I went to Washington, D.C. several times, and it was a wonderful experience. And we also have a comment from Nancy, which I think is also nice to end on. She says that the idea of one's future self is so important and often overlooked. Thanks for sharing your wonderful insights. That's to both of you. And we thank you as well. This is a conversation that could probably go on for a very long time, but we have another wonderful conversation coming up at 10:45, and I hope you, our audience, will all join us for that. The title is Creating Purposeful Connections, Understanding Palliative Care. It's being provided by Katie DeMarco, who is one of our cherished team members at the Hackensack University Medical Center. She's a palliative specialist there. Again, to Laurice and Nirali, thank you loads. Thank you loads. It was a beautiful way to kick off our event. And thank you, audience members. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.